Hey everyone, Dr. Frunky here with an awesome new knife console for you on the Frank Fischer Fury. Now, if you go back on my channel, you will recall that I've already made a video on the Frank Fischer Fury, and that is on this knife. These are actually both my knives, and I wanted to show you the updated Bolsterlock models so you can get an idea of what those knives look like. You should go back and check out my original video on this Fury that I got at Blade Show 2019. Absolutely fantastic knife with the polished Damacore blade and the frame lock hole version right here. Basically a standard handle with the fancy blade. This time I've gotten one that has a fancy handle and a fancy blade, and we're definitely going to take a little bit more of a look here. So let's go ahead and get some vital signs on this knife. As we are already aware, this is a relatively small knife. The blade actually comes in at about 3.2 inches. You're at about 3.6 inches to the pivot and about 7.3 inches of overall length. So it's a very small knife, and that's intentional. Frank wanted to have a very EDC-friendly knife with that awesome double recurve blade shape right there. So let me show you the size comparison compared to a Para 2 and a Para 3. It's even smaller than a Para 3, so it's quite a compact knife. Even though it looks like it's larger than life in a lot of the photos, it has a very strong presence in the photographs. This one, interestingly, is quite light. It features Westinghouse Micarta scales, and so using micarta instead of titanium in that space makes this one at 4.3 ounces. That's pretty light considering the standard model right here comes in at 4.7 ounces. So it's certainly an improvement. Now, if you were to get a knife with titanium bolsters or titanium Damascus like Damascus or Mokutai or whatever, it would probably balance it a little bit differently. But this one with the micarta accents comes in much lighter. We'll get into all of that in just a minute as we break this knife down anatomically. Up front is this incredible blade of Chad Nichols Intrepid Damascus. Chad Nichols Damascus, this Intrepid I believe is made out of AEBL, 440C, and a couple of other steels to create this incredible pattern. I've noticed that there are maybe two major patterns going on here. If you use the pivot here, this gorgeous Fischer pivot as a focal point, notice how there are lines running outward, sort of radiating out through the blade away from that pivot. It seems to be very focused on that space, but then there are also the other lines that sort of weave through these lines, and so it disrupts the straight pattern that you see in that Damascus pattern. It's incredible. This is one of the coolest patterns, in my opinion, out there. I really enjoy seeing these fine lines that go through the larger pattern. It's just mind-boggling how this is done. And it's very cool stainless performance Damascus, so it is going to be a very, very nice blade to actually use. On this one, because Frank was not able to put his name on the inside of the micarta backspacer, the name is actually written here on the blade. So you'll see an F. Fischer hidden inside of that Damascus pattern. And on this one, it works so well because it's hidden. You almost can't see his name written there in that double recurve blade. Now, this is one of the coolest blade shapes. I've been talking about the steel the whole time, but let's just talk about the blade shape. The Frank Fischer double recurve blade shape is the blade shape that got me into high-end knives in the first place. The battle blade shape, this double recurve shape, is the stuff of legends to me. So of course I had to jump on an opportunity to pick another one of these Furies up. This is my grail knife, and I can't really say anything more than that. These are extremely special to me personally, and so I'm really happy to have this one here. This one has a slightly different grind on it. I really like that the flats are much smaller. It's harder to tell with this Damascus steel, but it's even a bit more sharp of a hollow grind on this one, and I like that. The harpoon swedge is very cool. And overall, one of the most wicked blade shapes in the entire industry. Moving back to the pivot on this one, you will notice that there is Zircuti inlays and a Zircuti pivot collar with a ton of zirconium in there. Absolutely beautiful. Now, the really cool part of this knife is the S bolster variant right here. I really love the aggressive S. It's quite a sweeping S going on there. In fact, on their recent collaboration, the Warbird, which you can also see this video on my channel, the S is not quite so aggressive. So it's so cool to see how that works on this knife right here. When I flip the knife, my fingers rest perfectly. My thumb tends to rest right there on the micarta, and so it's very, very comfortable. You never touch the bolster. It's very interesting the way that works. And as you close, your hand seems to wrap around it in this way, so it's always on the bolster material or on the scale material. And so that's just a nice design ergonomically as well as visually. Speaking of these scales, I cannot hold back any further. This is some of the most beautifully done Westinghouse micarta. This is going to be some vintage, very fine paper micarta that was, licensed by the Westinghouse company. This is the legitimate old school stuff that had a nice patina on it, and then Frank was able to bring it to this beautiful, what I call toasted marshmallow. It almost looks like bone coloration. The piece starts out as a dark orange, but as you clean it up and polish it, it takes on this much lighter color. The real color is this ivory, sort of off-white color once it's all clean, but to be able to leave some of that finish that's developed over time, it just shows the skill of the maker as well as the beauty of the material. He was really able to maximize that. And then he went one step further and he made the backspacer out of some very rare vintage Westinghouse micarta with the double black line right there. This is apparently a very rare piece to find, and to be able to have a nice piece like this lined up beautifully with this black ceramic frame. This is familiar with my old knife as well as a few other knives that I've had from Frank with the black ceramic coating that he does on here. I really like it. It provides a very durable finish, one that I don't have to worry about, and one that contrasts very nicely with the other finishes here. It's a true black, and it looks very handsome with this, a very tuxedo look for the handle, as well as a high contrast to the grays and silvers of the blade. Taking a look here at the clip, it's done in Zircuti as well. This is Frank and Rob have this new finish going on with these knives that's sort of a hot, finely blasted and then nicely colored Zircuti look, so it doesn't collect fingerprints in the same way and still remains very bright in all angles. So this knife is the Bolsterlock version, and so the lockup is slightly different. I really enjoy the way that these are fitted together. It's an incredibly, incredibly tight fit. If I bring you up close on here, the micarta to titanium transition is non-existent all the way around, and then even here, very, very tight fitting. Now, one of the drawbacks here is that there's a little bit of the black handle rubs off on the micarta, but that's hardly a flaw in my opinion. It's just working a little channel into the micarta so that it becomes perfectly snug. One thing that you may have noticed that's very subtle, along the inside chamfer of this knife, if I get the light to bounce off of it just the right way, you'll notice that the inside chamfer has been polished all the way up on the inside of this knife, all the way around. If I close the knife, you're going to see it here. All of that internal chamfer, all the way down the back, even next to the micarta, all the way down around here. Beautifully done. And then there are fine chamfers around the Fischer pivot, which I'm going to show in high detail here. You can see tiny micro chamfers even on the inside of the stop pin hole right there. Both sides, tiny chamfers. The chamfer also extends out here. He did it on the front of the lock face as well, just as an accent line. Very, very cool. Just the attention to detail here and the very, very fine detail all add up to a beautiful knife, but it functions also so well. You can see very snappy detent, very crisp, and then it just drops shut under its own weight. I couldn't ask for a better action than this on any knife. It has the classic Fischer crisp and strong detent. and then a glass smooth closure just like that. Interestingly, the action is a bit more drop shut. My polished Damacor variant right here has a very hydraulic, very smooth. I love the way that this opens and closes. I thought this was the best action in my collection. I still think it might be with this very, very glass smooth hydraulic closure. And then this one is totally different with a very drop shut type of action and a very different sound, as you can hear. The Micarta provides a very different acoustic effect, but still a very loud, powerful sound. So just an overall awesome, awesome knife. Absolutely beautiful. I did not order this knife the way that it came. Honestly, I'll give credit to my friend Aaron, who had the vision to create this knife. Unfortunately, he was unable to keep the knife in his collection, but I promised him that I would keep it alive in my collection and make it worth his while. So thank you to Frank for making awesome knives. Thank you to Aaron for allowing me to purchase this knife. And thank you to everyone for watching. Let me know what you think of this Bolsterlock Fury down in the comments below. Go ahead and click like and subscribe. I'll leave some links to some of my other videos about the Fury and other Frank Fischer knives. And as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunky saying, take care.